Good evening. I'd like to call to order the Board of Education meeting for Monday, August 24th, 2026. Can I have the roll, please, Ms. Sauber?
Kathy Crippen?
Here.
Mrs. Dernbaugh?
Here.
Mr. Peters?
Here.
Megan Sparks?
Here. We are very lucky tonight. We have 5 outstanding Watt students to lead our pledge. You guys want to come right up here? We have Duke, Brooks, Leanne, Luke, and Kenley. What? Okay. Stay right here by Dookie Duke, okay? We'll get you the mic and you guys can talk in this.
So,
Just start whenever you want to.
okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Good job, guys. Thank you so much.
I don't want to think.
They keep saying they want to stay here. Maybe someday they'll be sitting here. Good job, guys. Okay, can I please have a motion for the approval of the agenda as presented?
So moved. Before we
Oh, just kidding. Sorry.
So a couple changes. It's not a change on the agenda, but I just want to share there are a couple changes in the actual schedules. So at your seat, you'll see Schedule C, which is page 100 in the full pack of the agenda. There was a typo for the custodian listed on the very last line. It was listed as 35,358, and it should be 35,785. So you have that correction. On the next page, there was a contract that was deleted. There was a third contract by mistake, so we cut that over the weekend, and that has been corrected on page 106. And then finally, on page 111, this is Schedule D1. Security staff, they were listed at an incorrect hourly rate. It's their actual hourly rate now. It's actually less than the number that was provided. So the number that was provided was $30 an hour. That's been corrected to their current hourly rate, which is actually less than that. So that is for the security staff there and the lunch gym supervision. That has been corrected. Any questions for that? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wessing. Now, can I please have approval of the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Sauber, can I have the roll call, please?
Kathy Crippen?
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh?
Yes.
Mr. Peters?
Yes.
Megan Sparks?
Yes. Public participation. The Board of Education recognizes the value to school governance of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. The presiding officer of each board meeting at which public participation is permitted shall administer the following rules of the board. The portion of the meeting for participation of the public shall be limited to 30 minutes. Attendees must register their intentions to participate on a sign-up sheet 30 minutes prior to each meeting. Individuals may not register others to speak, and no participant may speak more than once. Participants must first be recognized by the presiding officer and will be requested to preface their comments by an announcement of their name and whether the participant is a resident or non-resident, and if appropriate, their group affiliation. Each statement made by the participant shall be limited to 3 minutes or less. The board will listen to all who speak, but generally do not engage in discussion or dialogue at this time. Matters requiring follow-up will be directed to the superintendent. And it looks like we only have one person this evening, Judge Nichols Sullivan. Did I say that right? Sullivan?
Good evening, Madam President and members of the board. My name is Judge Nicholas Sylvain, Montgomery County Juvenile Court. I'm here to basically introduce myself to you and members of the community who are present. A little bit of background about me. I graduated from the University of Dayton with a degree in engineering. I went off to law school, and when I came back from law school, I was a Montgomery County prosecutor doing criminal trial work. After that, I've spent the last 23 years as a domestic relations court magistrate, making all kinds of important decisions for families and children of Montgomery County. I'm here because the juvenile court has many partners and stakeholders in juvenile justice issues. Your police department, your council that I've had the honor of addressing recently, obviously this board, your schools, and the citizens that you represent. I'm here basically to listen because I am bringing fresh eyes to juvenile court. I want to know from people who've had experiences with juvenile court what the court has done well. And if the court has done things that we could do better on, I want to hear about that too. I want to hear everyone's concerns about juvenile justice issues because lots of people have lots of opinions about juvenile justice issues, and I want to hear all of them. Hopefully, by introducing myself and opening that kind of communication with the board and members of the community, I can improve our communication between the court and the stakeholders. We can have discussions about shared issues of concern for juvenile justice issues, and we can see how we can basically help each other. I know this is my first appearance before the board. As I've told everyone, I certainly hope it's not my last, and that we can have some productive discussions in the future. And again, thank you for your time, and I hope we'll be in touch. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is board and administrative reports. First up is legislative report with Mrs. Crippen.
Hi, everyone. From here on out, I am going to be taking over. Dr. Graff usually was the primo legislative updater. So I am going to try to do as good of a job as she did, as thorough. It's nice that I'm taking it over right now because the General Assembly is on break, is on recess. So it's a good time for me to dive into this. Really, there are just a few bills that have been introduced. This one, Senate Bill 463 by Senator Gavarone and Senator Brenner. This is about each school district with grades 6 through 12 to create a threat assessment team for each building. They will coordinate resources and assessment and interventions of students who they think may pose a threat to the safety of schools, the staff, or students. That's a big sentence. That's a lot of undertaking, but it was just introduced, and so we'll see again when they come back in session, the conversation and how this progresses. Another just very important and very it's not put out there that much, but the FCC is putting out the possibility of terminating or limiting the E-rate program. The E-rate program is something that is nationwide. So this is the federal court, not the state court or government, sorry. So this is how libraries and schools connect and communicate with each other. Mr. Morgan has said this is not uncommon for the idea of terminating or limiting the E-rate. This comes up every so often, but I think it's important because we have until October 15th to send comments to the FCC about how this is necessary for our schools and libraries to within a district, but also beyond our district. Centerville right now, the E-rate gives us this $249,000 support in our funds for this. If it were to go away, we would have to pay that. Centerville being, our district, that is not much compared to a more rural district, districts that are outside and need a lot of internet support. They would really, all throughout the country, would really suffer from that. So I think this is important. You can send, there is a link there, or you could just look up federal E-rate program, and they have online, they have form letters that you can send, or you can send just a personal email, which I think goes a little bit farther than a form letter. But we have until October 15th to respond to that. So those are the two. Again, always Senator Blackshear and Senator Young, or Representative, well, no, Senator Blackshear and Representative Young. There is their contact information, and I will continue to try to inform you as well as Dr. Graff has. Thanks.
Good job, Mrs. Crippen.
Thanks.
All right, next we have our veterans, the student board report. Just want to go ahead on up.
All right, so tonight we'll be sharing with the board kind of what we've been doing since school let out in May. So this is kind of a continuation from then. So for my part, I've been working with Dr. Graff, who is unfortunately not here, on a plan to address student awareness of our available resources for mental health. So I'm trying to work to understand the implementation of 504s, IEPs, board policies, and student handbook policies on that kind of issues. So bullying, any kind of intervention that needs to happen, that kind of thing. That's what I've been focusing on. And our goal, our plan is to work with the board and the school community to guide that discussion and come up with solutions. So this year, our student-led focus group, we're starting that up again, will be focusing mostly on mental health, student wellness aspects of our support. And we are trying to bring a wider array of students than we've had in previous years in that discussion so that we can get more varied opinions. And then we will bring those ideas back to you and back to our school counselors and guidance office to help with future planning. All right, and I'll land in for student.
So back in May, us board reps sent an electronic survey link out to the student body of Centerville as a way to collect general comments or concerns, and also as a way to make sure our student body felt heard. Many of the issues brought up were already in the works of being fixed and or worked on, and many had already been resolved or have been resolved over the summer. However, there were two main themes in the responses that, as a group, we'd like to consider different ways to solve. And the first thing I saw was that more seating and activities would be appreciated out in the front of the school because of how common of an area it is for kids to go outside during lunch or after activities and while they're waiting on parents. Just like cornhole boards or just additional seating would be really, really great. There were several responses on that sort of theme. I had the idea of working with an Eagle Scout troop. I know that there are Eagle Scout projects where they'll build benches or basically donate stuff like that to parks or stuff or other places like that. So I figured I could reach out to a local Eagle Scout troop and see if we could work something out. I was also, the second most serious thing we saw in these responses was that some students feel that mental health and bullying are under-recognized in Centerville. Obviously, we do put in a lot of work behind the scenes, but we wanted to make sure that these students still felt heard as through our work in this next year. So we see this as an opportunity for the theme of this year's student focus groups and additional surveys to talk about access, available safety nets, and how to help students feel seen, heard, and safe, and brainstorm about new ideas to help. So our focus groups are really going to be focused on that, especially in response to these surveys. Thank you.
Hi, so I'll be taking over the teacher feedback survey. And our teacher feedback survey last year, the initiative was an effort started last year to create a structured way for students to be able to share their feedback and input to the teachers. And the board representatives would solely serve as solicitors by providing the paper resources to the teachers, and the responses would stay with the teachers. For the 2026-2027 school year, we would like to continue this initiative by encouraging more teachers to incorporate some form of student feedback or surveying into their classrooms through pilot program or at the end of the first quarter. We could introduce the pilot through an email on behalf of the board representatives, emphasizing the importance of feedback and teacher-students advocacy. Thank you.
That's all we have for now, but we'll be back in September with more. So thank you.
Great job, guys. Thank you. Next is financial update with Ms. Sauber.
Good evening. Tonight I wanted to talk with you for a little while on our financial forecast for fiscal year 2027. We did talk in detail last week, so for those of you in attendance that were not here, we probably talked for half an hour about finances, I think. A lot about reappraisal, about the projections that you're going to see this evening. I've been saying this for a year now. The timing of this is not ideal. November used to be our forecast period. November fit for a lot of reasons. We had all of our staffing firmed up. We were paying people according to their new contracts. Levy cycles in terms of November elections were not on the ballot, but for districts that are, the November time period fit really well. There will be a revision in February. Also not ideal for districts that are on the ballot in May and for districts that are negotiating this spring. Again, none of that impacts us for this time period, but it's still we're still firming up some of our numbers, and so know that we may be back to you if they change. They won't change a lot, but if it's significant enough or materialistic enough that I feel like we should bring that back to you, we will do that sometime this fall. So I just want to start by just saying those few things. So just to hit a few of the highlights in fiscal year 2027, this calendar year in 2026, the Montgomery County is going through its reappraisal cycle. I presented on this a month ago and tried to give you quite a bit of a detail. Our reappraisal rate is tentatively being set around 13%. We'll have those numbers finalized by December. So this fall, I will report to you what our actual final reappraisal number is. That will affect calendar year 2027. It does give us some inside millage growth, but that growth is now limited by House Bill 335. I've been told by the county auditor that we'll see on a calendar year basis, so that's half in this fiscal year and then a full collection next fiscal year, about $1.4 million additional dollars in property taxes. That would have been over $2 million had House Bill 335 not been a factor. That a 13% increase in that valuation, just as a reminder, does not equal a 13% increase in people's taxes. Most people in Montgomery County will see about a 1 to 2% increase in their tax bills. There's other things that could impact their taxes. If their community or if there was a county issue or something that passed, there are other reasons. Kettering's bond issue, for example, right? They passed a bond issue, they're going to see an increase. That's just one example, but we don't have that from a school district perspective. State funding is very flat for us. We're on the guarantee. We've been on the guarantee. We will remain on the guarantee. I do not see any scenario, at least definitely not in this biennium, probably not in the next biennium, where that will change. And that's an issue from a funding level that we've not received an increase. No, there's no inflationary piece. There's nothing additional that we receive. There's a few components outside of the funding formula, things like transportation reimbursement, for example, that have been phased in over the last few years. We get a few more dollars for that, but otherwise it's very, very flat in terms of our state funding. And then the last thing to point out for revenue is that interest rates are really good. And so you'll see in a few slides that we do have a healthy cash balance right now. We're investing those and maximizing every dollar that we can possibly earn. We're not playing the stock market. We don't do that. We're very limited on what we can invest in, but we are in the 3 to 4% range on our investments. And so we keep that money invested for as long as what we can until we need it to pay for payroll or to pay our bills. And then just on the expense side of things, from a pay perspective, we're coming off of 2 years of a 0% increase to the base for fiscal year 25 and fiscal year 26. But we did settle the negotiations with CCTA a year ago at this time. We were, I think, board approving that in August. But that was effective for this new contract year. So fiscal year 27 is the first year for that. And then we worked hard all last school year and implemented some changes to our classified pay to try to get us up to be a little more competitive with our area school districts and to be a little bit better in the market. And that also is effective starting this year. So those are, to me, I think you have about 4 pages worth of assumptions that accompany the forecast that I'm asking you for approval for tonight. But these really are the highlights. So from a revenue perspective, the numbers are small, but board, you do have that in front of you. But you can see the increase from 25 to 26 in our taxes. That is our biggest source of revenue. That is because in 26, we collected the first full fiscal year from the levy that was passed in November of 2024. It takes time for that to phase itself in. And then you can see from 27 to 28, there's an increase each year for that. Most of that is due to reappraisal, but a little bit of it is also due to a factor for new construction. On the south side of the district, there's a lot of new construction happening, and we do get additional revenue for those new properties that are being built. Everything else, though, on this from a revenue perspective is pretty much flat or in line with the assumptions that I've already talked about. Revenue for this year, we're anticipating to be about $138 million. Expenses, again, the bulk of our expenses are wages and benefits. We're a service industry. We pay people, right? So all the teachers and custodians and bus drivers and everybody that we pay, that makes up the majority of our expenses. That number for this year as a percentage of our budget is about 86.7%. Last year, we came in at about 88.7%. One of the discussion points that we had last week, Mrs. Dernbaugh, you asked about this number because what I mentioned to you is that many districts see more of in the 85% range of salary to benefit ratio. The difference for us is that our permanent improvement projects are happening out of a permanent improvement fund. And so many districts are buying buses from the general fund. They don't have a permanent improvement levy on their books. And so they're doing building repairs and they're buying buses and they're buying computers and infrastructure and all of those things. They're doing it out of their general fund. We do the majority of that out of permanent improvement. So I did add the PI expenses into that percentage to see what that percentage would have been for 26, and it was 84.3%. Which I was thrilled to see that number. And so it's right on target with where I would want to see the district from a percent of salary and benefits to percent of operating revenue. Everything else that you see there are just is our department budgets. Those translate to they're organized differently on the forecast that I'm asking you to approve for tonight. Here, they're organized by departments. On the forecast, they're organized by accounting function. So purchase services and supplies and capital outlay. Each of our department budgets might contain all 3 of those things. So, but know that the bottom line is the same. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the bottom line right now. We operated at a surplus last year. Back in February, we had anticipated an $8.5 million surplus. We actually ended at a 14.3 almost. The reason that we ended the year so much better than what we had predicted was we overcollected on our revenue and we undercollected, or we underspent in our budget. And so, and it wasn't any one thing, it was several, it was a lot of line items. And so we did end the year much better than what we had anticipated. This year, I'm anticipating at least a $5 million surplus, and again, a surplus in 28 before we start to dip into that deficit spending mode. But you can see that in the green line there, from a cash balance perspective, we have a very healthy cash balance. It's the highest I've seen in Centerville for quite some time, and it's really positioned us, and I think Mr. Wesney is going to mention this when he talks next in his opening kind of beginning of the year statement. It's really positioned us to stretch those dollars for as long as what we possibly can, and to implement things from our strategic plan that are so important to us as a district. I did want to point out, I already talked about the surplus there a little bit, but I did want to talk about this cash balance as a percentage of expenses, and this is just, there's nothing for sure on this, but I want to remind the board that in the last biennial budget cycle, the cash balance was a big topic. We weren't impacted by it because the version that was taken to the governor for approval was a 40% cash reserve, that if you had anything over 40%, the county auditor was going to be allowed to reduce your tax collection. He ended up vetoing that. And so it didn't get into law. And so all of us treasurers, we were happy that it didn't get into law, especially those districts that I mentioned that do their capital improvements out of their general fund. They might be saving for a roof, right? Or they might be saving to buy 2 buses 2 years from now. So every district has different cash balance philosophies, and so I am really watching that, and I think when the budget bill is introduced, when we get to February, I think we're going to see something with cash balance again. I don't know for sure, right? There's a lot that can happen between now and February when that happens, but that's just awareness, and it's something for us to be thinking about, and I already have some ideas of how we can deal with that, but we're not going to get into that tonight. But just know that that's something that we'll want to monitor and watch closely. So tonight, on the agenda for your approval or consideration for your approval is the financial forecast. I show 5 years of projections up here. It's a 4-year projection. That's what's required now by the Ohio Department of Education, but we continue to look at 5 years and even longer, just because it's good to look at long-term financial planning. Any questions for me tonight? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sauber. Next, we have the 2026-2027 school year. I'm assuming it's presented by Mr. Wesney because he's running up there.
All right, good evening, everyone. So as I mentioned, work session tonight, this will be just a brief snapshot, just some statements about the kickoff of the start of the school year. I'm going to have the opportunity to introduce SHP. A couple of folks here tonight is going to talk about our community survey, and so they have a lot of information to share. Again, good evening. Just want to take a minute to kind of reflect a little bit back on the start of the school year. We're off to a great start so far. The theme that we've talked with a lot of our staff and all of you is together. I think that is an important part of the message that we have for our staff, working together as teams, working together with the board, the administration, and our staff to make sure that we meet the needs of our students. Every year we take a few minutes to look at our strategic plan. I always think it's important. I like to share our strategic plan in some of our meetings. I think it's important to review. Our strategic plan is to empower and challenge and support every learner to grow every day. And I think together we can complete our mission. So getting the year started, obviously there's a lot of work that takes place at the end in the spring of the previous school year, but a lot of work that takes place in the end of July and August to get the school year started. So you can see from administrative council meetings as early as July the 30th, new teacher academy week that took place, opening day staff meeting, which we had the entire staff in the PAC for a meeting, the first day of school to preschool just last week. And as I mentioned, we are off to a very, very good start. when we have our summer meetings, we try to take some time to talk with our staff, talk with our administrators about our strategic plan and how things went the previous year, but we also talk about reasons to celebrate. And we're always looking at last year's accomplishments and taking the time to celebrate. I always think it's good to celebrate our staff. We have new staff that we welcomed in at New Teacher Academy. And some of those numbers, we had over 200 new staff moves and changes. That means staff going from maybe Stingley to Watts or from the middle school to the high school. We always have those types of changes across the district. Over 95 new certificated and classified staff. Now, that's not new additional staff. Those are replacements. You know, a lot of those folks that we hired to bring in to replace those that retired, that a lot of you sat through and saw the retirees here last spring. And a total of 9 total administrative changes that took place this spring. I always like to celebrate our students. Last week, I gave you some numbers about our enrollment. That enrollment number changed, as I said it would. It's constantly changing as we are getting a count of our students as they come in. But I always like to celebrate the fact we have 8,003 students that are currently enrolled in the district. Obviously, that's what we're here for, is our students. Some other reasons to celebrate: we've continued our multi-tier systems of support, MTSS, at all levels throughout the district, which is good for our students. We've also implemented programs and practices to support Portrait of an Elk by changing the middle school schedule, putting in the Portrait Elk class, and actually received a lot of recognition from Montgomery County ESC for the work our curriculum office and our staff did with that program. Some additional reasons: work-based learning and pre-apprentice programs. We've talked a lot with this group about new systems for accounting and payroll through HR and through the finance office, the treasurer's office. And we also took a lot of time this past year looking at revisions to our classified pay schedules and made some much needed improvements to their pay schedules. Some more reasons. You just heard, I think, a very big reason to celebrate in Laura Sauber's presentation tonight. With her presentation, it really gives us an opportunity to really now focus on our facilities. Our facilities are way overdue. I left out your favorite slide. My favorite slide has all the buildings and their age. I've shared many times that the average age of our facilities is 61 years old. It's time for us to make a decision and really have worked hard to gather community input and information from the community as how to move forward. I've also shared a lot of conversations with the board and the community about our agreement with SHP. They're simply here to help us to engage the community, engage our stakeholders, to find out what's important to the community as we move forward with our facilities. In addition, I think it's important just to keep a note of the timeline. You know, we've created a very realistic but challenging timeline, as you can see up on the screen. Right now, we're still in the listening and learning phase. Tonight, you're going to get to hear some of the information presented in the community survey, which is part of that listening and learning phase. Soon, there'll be some times to look at options to actually look at and develop and test with our focus groups and with folks who want to continue through the survey work that we're doing. And then, hopefully, we'd like to finalize some type of decision late in the fall that we can bring to the board for approval later on this coming winter. We're going to continue our Elk Connects. That's something that we started back in 2003. It's just a way for the district to continue to engage the community. I wanted to share these dates with all of you, starting September the 23rd, October the 15th, and November the 19th. That's just going to be another opportunity that we're going to be able to share additional information, hopefully some more survey results that we have from SHP, but there will be some additional community forums that those dates haven't been set yet, but I wanted to at least share those dates that you see up there on the screen. So that concludes my presentation. Just want to say thanks for all of you for the great start to the year. At this time, I would like to introduce Phil Anastasio and Charlie Janigan. I think Phil's going to be mostly doing the presentation, but I'm going to turn it over to Phil and let him get started on our community results.
Right there's my. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you to the board and district administration for opportunity to speak in front of you tonight. We thought we'd like to give an update with all the great things we've been doing over the summer and give you kind of a preliminary results of the survey to kind of show where what we've collected, where we've gone, and where we hope to be going next. So we started the process with focusing on the internal stakeholder groups. Am I speaking loud enough? I'm like talker and walker. Sorry, I'm Italian. So we started with the inside and working out, right? So we started kind of the kickoff with this process, talking with that Elks Connect that John mentioned before. That's kind of that group that's kind of reoccurring meetings, talking about the buildings and the facilities. So we thought that was a great way to kind of connect with the Elks Connect, right? That was our first thing, and then we talked with all the PTO. Organizations throughout the schools and even the presidents later on towards the end of the summer, and then the administrative. So we started with the staff. They are the ones that needed to know what we were going to do, and we had to capture them before school ended because they were gone. So we actually had a staff launch of the survey throughout the summer at the kind of the closing day ceremony. Was the day after school let out early in the morning, and we incentivized with throwing stuffed elk. But it was kind of a great kind of a rah, get everyone, like, the teachers know these facilities better than anyone. They live them, they breathe them, they have given their lives to these buildings, and that was a great kind of a way to kick off, hey, your input is important. You are crucial to this. And then we started from that moment on to the external. We had to focus to the greater community. It's usually, when we talk community engagement, engaging the non-engaged is the hardest part, right? Everyone has busy lives, they're doing everything, and expecting the community to come to us is very hard. It's a struggle. So we had to make sure we made the effort to go to the greater community. So throughout the summer, John and his team have been really pushing opportunities to get in front of the greater community, from meeting with the Optimist Club to the joint entities to the concerts at Stubbs, right? Where I don't know how many thousands of people go there for the series. Being at Americana, being at the Friday downtowns. There's an Elks Express going to all these little neighborhoods and to these younger populations, making sure that we were there and out in front, right? Even just recently to Midnight Hits, where the community was, we made sure that we were there, making sure that they could get involved, they could give us their information. And we kind of created a little bit of a celebrity, not going to lie, but the efforts were not, this was a candid photo that someone took of John out there communicating, being out in the community. I think a lot of school districts really struggle of being out in public in the community, and John did an amazing job being out there. I think there's a picture in my mind of a pie eating contest. It won't be shown, but it's ingrained in my mind, and it forever really shows the effort I think the district has made to be out in the community. And even through our discussions with the joint public entities, that they helped along in the process, because they know it's a community-wide thing, right? It's not just the district. And we leverage them from the township through the public libraries who are putting literature out there. And we're still embracing opportunities that use their networks and leverage their social media and access to the greater community, right? So that was a summer of outreach. We also developed a series of kind of consistent messaging and communication. We had to cut through the clutter of normal communications. The district does an amazing job of putting out all the great news stories and accolades and awards, but we needed to make sure this was something different. This is something that you needed to focus on, that you needed to pay attention to. It's something a little different than the normal communication. So we came up with kind of the Build Elk Strong campaign message, right? We had a whole series of consistent messaging as we went out into the community. It wasn't just kept changing, and we have a URL that directs people to get engaged, to get their information. We had it at the signage at, I think that was at Americana for the at the fireworks. Excuse me, I talked a lot. We made it clear, we made it concise to get that message out. We also started leveraging digital outreach, right? We know everyone in the community is not at these events, so we had to make sure we were reaching people where they were, right? On their digital devices. So we leveraged meta advertising through Facebook, and we just started this a couple weeks ago. But for the cost of just under $300, we leveraged their advertising platform to reach with a message about Build Elk Strong and driving traffic to get involved in the survey. 44,000 unique visitors in a 10-day period, 92,000 views, and we got 700 clicks going to the survey. Now that's all for $300, right? It's a great cost-effective way to get to the message. We know it works. We're going to leverage it continuing on to get the message out to the masses at scale, cost-effectively. When we look at social media reach, you know, your Facebook page is great and you have 13,000 followers, but we learn, you know, when we work throughout the state, that when it's your posts aren't, you know, the content isn't as engaging, doesn't have a lot of cute kids and awards and that stuff, it kind of hits a ceiling, right? It's just not the content that they're used to, that it's really exciting, that gets shared and goes social, right? Facebook is rewarding the engagement and the algorithm to stuff that people want to see. And when you talk about facilities, it kind of, right? So even of your 13,000 page followers, you were topping out at 56 on this kind of content. So we used the advertising to get beyond that, to get beyond your 13,000 and get in increases. One of the interesting things, and that Katie just shared with me a couple days ago, is there was kind of a serendipitous effect as we reached out to the community started to reach back out to us a little bit more. So she noticed over the summer, as the district was reaching out and being out this, that she had a spike in her views and her interactions and followers that she would normally not see in a summer, right? When it's kind of down, that she noticed a bump in both Facebook and Instagram. As you know, we were out and about, people were more aware and more engaging with the content that she put out. It's a great kind of a, you know, it shows kind of a momentum as we're communicating, right? They want to follow along and be involved, right? And this is a little data sample of, I'll talk about a survey a little bit later, but this was a great, for me, kind of, in the second round of surveys, this was about 300 and so, that we asked how often that they were hearing about the master facility plan and Build Elk Strong. And 5 was, we see it everywhere. We can't, you know, and 1 was never saw it. So there was a majority of the population that we've reached out to that said they've seen it, right? So this is kind of confirmation that what we're doing, where we've been at, all the stuff that we're putting out there has been seen, and it turned out that it's everywhere in their mindset, right? So that perception is a great thing that we are kind of building throughout the summer. And we kind of wrapped up the summer. John and I presented at the opening day, and it was 1,800 responses back then, and we're almost at 2,000 now. But it was a great way to kind of give back to these teachers. They started it, and as the summer ended and they were back on, we shared with them a couple sound bites of information that they kind of were privy to more than, you know, quicker than anyone else, to see like what the community thought of them, right? And their teaching. It was a great kind of like give back full circle. So when we talk about an initial survey, like this first survey is all about getting that baseline information from the community, where their perceptions, their interests, what's their feelings about stuff, without any kind of context or information. And we had almost 2,000, and they keep trickling in every day. John checks them more than I do, which is impressive. Almost 2,000 submissions. 3,000 people have started, and they've maybe petered out. But that's an amazing first stab at the community, right? We've reached out, and they gave us their information. 1,200 of your community members actively gave us their contact information. And that's an amazing data point. We don't get to see that. You know, Charlie can attest to, we work in communities, we get like 400 total and then maybe like 15 communications. We've even worked with a district where we mailed out 3,000 postcards to households, and we got 7 people wanted to be contacted. So this shows kind of all that hard work is paying. We have, you know, 1,200 plus and growing members of the community that want to have a conversation with us. Great information, right? When we look at these over 1,900 responses, the other thing is, it's, you know, when we usually try to get feedback, they skew heavily towards the parents. They're the ones that we have contact information for. They're the ones most, heavily invested. And we see usually parents making up 80, 85% of survey. The fact that parents are only 56%, and we got 20% of the community in this first stab is a great data pool to work with in communicating, right? It shows that it's a broader reach than normal. And when we look at, we ask zip code to see where geographically everyone is located that filled out the survey, because we want to make sure it's not being swayed or skewed by a certain population. And when we look at the breakdown of the respondents by that zip code and we match it with the only public data source we have, our registered voters, it's almost in lock. So we know that this at least is a representative geographically of your community. The 45440 isn't getting 30%, representative. It is kind of at least closely matched with your population. And with age groups, we can see that, a majority are in that 30 to 49 parent range, but we're also getting into kind of starting in the empty nester and dipping into the seniors that we're also having, doubling down on printed surveys and other ways to reach that community. So one of the first questions we asked is, how we're doing. And when we talk about how well we're educating, we had over 89% of the respondents, remember that's 2,000 people, said you guys were doing good to very good. So this is one of the great stats we shared with the staff. We don't see that very often. That's in the upper echelon, right? And it wasn't just the staff or the parents, right? This was at all these stakeholder groups. The general community felt you guys were 88% of them good to very good, right? Great data points. You guys are doing what you're saying you're doing. And we talk about communication. This is another thing a lot of districts struggle with is communicating. This is usually a flipped bar chart, but that over 71%, not only you're doing a great job at educating, you're doing a great job at communicating that you're educating, right? So over 71% good to very good. And this is by stakeholders, so it's even their community. 58% of your community thought you were good to very good, when they don't even know what, they know what bad is, but the fact that you're doing a good to great job is also a great, kind of an early litmus test as we begin this process that we don't have, deficiencies in either. We also asked them preferred communication. So by overwhelming 84% email, websites is always that standard, but people really don't get communicated with in a website, right? It's just usually a landing point for information, but things like texting and Facebook. One of the kind of the data points is almost 50% of your parents preferred texting. Like they are probably inundated with emails more than anyone, so they prefer texting. And that is also a communication. We got that in the survey, so we can also text them because they prefer that. So we're going to make sure we get both sides of the equation. And what is an interesting thing is over 48%, so almost half of the respondents from the community preferred Facebook as an information communication, right? So the whole survey was 36.9, but the community felt broadly that almost half preferred Facebook, which means we need to leverage that as a communication tool. And back to all the great thing Katie's doing, and we're leveraging meta ads to even making sure we are getting in front of that in one of their preferred mechanisms. One of the other questions we asked was your overall value for a tax dollar. How well are you educating students for what they pay in taxes? So over 70% of your community thought you were having an overall good value for their tax dollars. The community was over 64%, which I thought was a great. There's other communities I work with that it's definitely a lot lower. When we talk about facilities, right? So we wanted to this is how we started digging deeper into, we asked kind of a point blank, how do you think our facilities compare to the rest of the community? Over 43% thought they were worse or much worse. Almost half of your respondents thought your facilities, right? When we talk about the community, a third of them, so even though, they're not in it as much, a third of your community knew that they were probably worse or much worse. But it also shows that 2/3 of the community don't know really that, they've been removed from the facilities, they've been removed, they look great from the street, but this is part of the education process that we're going to need to do, right? When we ask how should they, over 77% thought they should be better or much better, right? This is an excellent community, and they feel that your facilities should match that. The community was at over 69%. When we kind of show the disconnect right here is the 43% thought you were much worse to much worse, but 77% thought you should be better. So this is the whole reason for our master planning process, right? We need to dig into solutions and how to address this. Sorry, dry mouth. When we're focusing on the future, so we asked a number of Likert scale questions on a 1 to 5 ratio, and this is kind of how you read it because it's a 1 to 5 scale, but it starts by 1, so the values. So if you're in that importance range above a 4.2, you're in the very important, and a 3.4 is in that 4. Does that make sense to everyone? So when we talk about the importance of new facilities, someone explained to this kind of in a layman's term. You imagine a bunch of sand on kind of a teeter-totter, right? So you can see the sand is weighing on that end, right? So you can see that the weight of the importance is in that that side. So the overall mean for that is a 3.8, which is above that 3.4. So it's in that over that importance. So new facilities were important from this almost 2,000 responses. When we talk about renovating facilities, it wasn't as heavily weighted, but it was still 3.5. So you're still in that, that mass of sand is still on that side of the scale at a 3.5. But to us, that shows that kind of that first blush that they both know from the community standpoint, something needs to be done. It's important for something, either new or renovation. That's an agreement that something needs to be done, right? That is an importance. When we talk about consolidation, this is where that kind of weight gets a little bit more balanced, right? We're looking at more of a normally distributed. It's a 3.1 mean, so it's a little bit, but this is not as important to them, right? Having the consolidation and picking either into the spectrum, it's not as heavily important as the other, right? And that even balances more. We talk about maintaining that configuration for kind of a 1-to-1 building ratio that we have now. This is even more balanced, right? It's more in that neutral sign there. They haven't really shown preference right now, without any context or information on the buildings. This is more both sides. We also, in surveys, we also like to kind of ask the question different ways, different times. We also ask questions that they're going to have to pick one side or the other, right? So when we ask them if their preference for maintaining existing schools or consolidating into less schools, so it was a 60-40 breakout on maintaining. And both the parents and the community were very similar to that, but the staff were 50-50, so they're torn, right? The ones who are more tightly associated with the buildings that know more about the issues and the challenges and the different concessions they make, they were more on that 50-50 split. So you can see that they shifted away from the other populations. We also ranked some of the factors of the different solutions to see what is important to them, right, on a priority wise. So we had these 3 priorities in ranking, and maintaining that configuration and renovate was a 1, but it was closer to a 2, right? So there's probably a lot of 1 and 2s, and 2 was right at 2 mean, a 2.0 mean. So you can see that they were probably flipping between 1 and 2 more often, right? And 3 was down there. When we talk about changing the boundaries, this is where there wasn't, right? Some of these factors weren't as dry and as easy cut. These were more, over 2, 3s, right? So they were more balanced. And then fiscal, right? So this is where 1 and 2, equitable learning environments. We talk about priorities when making fiscally responsible decisions, and then lowering long-term operational costs. Those were almost interchangeably. Like those were probably back and forth 1, right, for the most part of responses. You can also see that we are all, informing the respondents of the community with some of the issues that they're going to have to start thinking about, right? We are feeding them with these decisions. These are also some of the factors that you're going to have to start. So we're introducing some of these concepts. Same thing with learning environments. We asked about the most important, they had to pick the 3 most important features, right? So safety and security, updated classrooms, and your basic infrastructure. So the warm, safe, and dry. These were by far the top three, right? So this, to us, shows that they know the facilities are in need, and these are the priorities that need to be addressed. All the other features are important, but these are the heavily weighted. We must address these three things, right? And this is, as we dig deeper in the community, this is kind of the pillars in my mind of that we have to make sure everything addresses. And then we talk about, introducing concepts that we're going to talk about deeper, things like elements of modern learning. Now, not everyone knew what these probably were, but you're also introducing ideas that collaborative spaces and STEAM and STEM and tech are things that are going to be addressed in modern learning. And we also had them rate those. But these are some of the things we're going to dig deeper on. One of the things at the end of the survey is we also opened kind of open-end questions so we can get some insights, right? It wasn't just clicking buttons and typing and stuff. It was also giving them an opportunity to hear from them, right? And that's something we're going to do more and more throughout this. But we had over 450 people leave comments, which was impressive, right? Some of them were like no, or yes, or thank you, but we also had some kind of reoccurring kind of top-level themes about the facilities, the maintenance, and the infrastructure. That was, the number one. And then also about this process, about the engagement process and the timeliness and all that. So that's the things that they're concerned about. That's the things that we're going to be starting to address as we dig deeper. But it shows that they have an opinion, they have concerns and insights that they want to share with us. We also got a lot of great feedback thanking us for listening to them, right? They appreciate their voices being heard, that we're taking the time to listen to them, that we're involving stakeholders. So it's a great positive reinforcement that, their voices being heard in this process is important. And on the other end, that they still expect more. This is just the first step. We are digging deeper, and they expect more. And once we inform them and bring them more data, they can start to. They want to be like somebody, just sign me up for focus group tomorrow, kind of a mentality, right? I'm ready to go. And we sent out the other survey maybe a week and a half ago, and we had like 200 people do it within an hour, right? This is typing of stuff, and people were. They're ready to go. And that's part of, getting this engagement going is getting a contact information so we can have the dialogue. It's not just broadcasting and hoping. We get people that says they want to be involved, they want their voices heard, and we're giving them an opportunity. So we talk about next steps. We started launching some other surveys that we're going to dig deeper and get people to elect if they want to be in focus groups. So we have that contact information so we can start doing that in more meeting in face, either virtually, in person. We're going to start sharing building data and data. That's not great, Phil. But there's a lot of rich information on these buildings that I'm guessing most of your community doesn't know. Chuck knows everything, but we're trying to make it more digestible. There's a lot of great facts. We're going to get even more depth stuff, and that's going to be part of the communications out to the community. The results they heard from here, this is all about transparency. We heard from you. This is what we heard. We're going to dig deeper. Here's more information to help you make decisions, and that's where we're at in the process. Any questions? And my mouth is so dry.
I have one question.
Yes.
So we've got 1,900, almost 2,000 total respondents for the original survey.
Yep.
1,200 that are going to, for lack of a better term, move on to round two.
Have the opportunity.
Yes. Be invited to move on. What is the breakdown of? Because I know there was a big push to have a goal number for community members in the original survey. What is the breakdown of that 1,200?
Don't have it offhand. It's good.
Okay.
It's
is it pretty much in line percentage?
Yeah, I was shocked at how many of the community members.
Okay.
I don't have that. It's on my computer. I didn't put that in a slide, but I can get that for you.
Okay.
It's hundreds.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Great.
And we're not going to stop. It's not we're cutting off so the survey will remain open, and we're going to probably transition it to the next stage. So if people want to get involved, people that were busy this summer, we're traveling, we're still going to invite them in to have a conversation. We're going to push it's not too late. You can still get involved, so we're going to still get contact information. It just won't feed this initial survey, right? It's going to be that next level depth. That makes sense.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
When you bring your focus groups together, how are you going to? You bring them together. Are you going to give them information about possibilities of what the district could do? How are you going to kind of drive?
We're working through that now, but we're going to educate them on the baseline information, right? They probably don't know anything about the facility, so we have to have the level set of baseline information, right?
Yeah.
These are the buildings, these are the this is the cost for maintenance, all that stuff. So we have to educate them, and then we're going to talk a little bit more broader on like. Not like specifically this building. That's going to come later. It's like kind of a funnel,
Yeah.
right? We're starting broader, and as we're going to work through
Right.
those small groups, right? And what we learn in those initial focus groups will help inform the next stage, right? And we'll see who's involved and actually responds and comes to focus.
And just to clarify, you're not bringing a few plans for them initially.
There are no plans.
Right.
Charlie can attest. There is not a single plan.
Right. So you're just bringing information, and then ideas come from that.
Yeah, we're going to say, okay, one of the things we heard from the survey and the initial focus groups in the survey that this was important, right? This is a way to address that, right?
Thank you.
There's a lot of variables in play with your debt. You have, it's not 2 buildings. You have a lot. Yeah.
I think it's easy for people to get their head wrapped around safety, HVAC, those, 1 and 3 there, 2 in the middle, updated classrooms. How do we talk about that, and how do we educate the community in particular, right? Because we, during conversations we hear all the time, the buildings are old, but I went to school there and it was fine, right? So how do we talk about that, and what becomes that baseline for the benefits of changing the classrooms?
One thing that we're going to be talking with a lot of the staff of the building. Chuck is kind of getting us a list of teachers, and now that they're back, to talk to you, right? To see what they want to accomplish, what they are not doing. We also have Jeff Parker, who is not here, is our education vision. So he's been working with the staff as well. And I think they met once in May, and they're going to start meeting next month. So that it's all going to come from that process. It's kind of a parallel. And he will be introducing all that and capturing on that and bringing it in. That's just, I'm not an architect, but yes. Yeah. Yes, it's being addressed and handled. It all comes in to the process. Did I miss anything on that, Charlie? I think that's...
Anything else? Okay, great. Thank you so much for being here tonight and sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, next on the agenda is board policy review, second reading and revisions. Mr. Wesney?
So tonight, I brought a revised packet to all of you. We had a lengthy discussion last week in regards to these 4 policies. Just want to review and made some changes to the policies that from our discussion last week. The first one is the blended learning, which is policy 2370. Just gives us a little bit more flexibility of being a blended learning environment versus a standard brick and mortar school. So we went through that, didn't have a whole lot of questions. Grading was 5421. We talked through that. And I'll probably just pause here for a minute on class rank on 5430. We had a lot of discussion in regards to the tie and what a tie would mean in the top 5% or the top 10% when it comes to the governor's merit scholarship. So if you looked on page 9 at the bottom, where it starts really with line 40, in such cases where ranking of GPA results in a tie, we specifically put in the following factors that would be taken in order to determine the tiebreaker. And that was extended the value of the smallest decimal point. And then we made some changes. We moved the order around a little bit, the number of advanced standing programs, including honors, advanced placement, college credit plus, international baccalaureate, and career tech classes. We also, in that order, put in scores of standardized college entrance exams, ACT and SAT, and then specifically spelled out GPA for the core college prep courses, specifically in math, English, science, and social studies. And so I wanted to make sure that that was clarified. I know we had a lengthy discussion on that. We did happen to run the top 5% just to get a kind of a glance of what potential ties are out there. And so the top 5%, we're looking at 33, 34 roughly, by number, if I have my math right. We didn't have any conflicts in that top 5%. We see a lot of the conflicts once we get down to about 120, 123 in that category of the number of students. And so I feel like that process should help us resolve any tie break situation that we may see. And then the last board policy tonight for approval was 6220, budget preparation. This is really language that Laura Silver walked us through, and then I took out that remaining language that's on the back that was deleted from that policy. So that is the second reading. You'll see on the agenda tonight, there's a resolution to approve those 4 policies moving forward, unless there's any questions. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda, treasurer's recommendation. Consider approving the July 2026 financial statements, the monthly cash reconciliation, monthly fund activity report, the now purchase orders appropriated by administration, certified by the treasurer, and supported by the board. Resolution totaling $22,004.02. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Sauber, can I have the roll?
Kathy Crippen, Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Yes, consider approving the minutes of the following Board of Education meetings: July 27, 2026 regular meeting, August 17th, 2026 work session. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Ms. Sauber, can I have the roll call?
Kathy Crippen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Yes, consider approving the financial forecasts and assumptions of the 2027 through 2030 for submission to the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Anything on that one? Okay, can I have the roll call, please?
Kathy Crippen. Yes. Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Yes, consider approving the purchase and sales of commercial paper and bankers acceptance and the income earned from the commercial paper and bankers acceptance for the fiscal year 2026. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Can I have the roll, please?
Kathy Crippen.
Yeah.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Yes, consider approving the memorandum of agreement for the deposit of the public funds between the Centerville City Schools and the J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, N.A., effective August 22nd, 2026 through August 23rd, 2031. Can I have a motion, please? So moved.
Second.
Okay, can I have the roll call, please?
Kathy Crippen.
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Yes, superintendent recommendation. The superintendent recommends the accepting resignation as listed on Schedule A. The superintendent recommends the employment, change of employment status, or change of contract status for the certificated personnel listed on Schedule B for the salaries, programs, on the effective dates given. The superintendent recommends the employment or change of employment status for all supported staff personnel listed on Schedule C for the salaries, programs, and on the effective date given. The superintendent recommends the employment of the personnel listed on Schedules D and D1 for supplemental contracts or extra duty assignments. The superintendent recommends the granting of leaves of absence for the personnel listed in Schedule E for the reason on the date given. And the superintendent recommends the reemployment of non-renewal personnel listed on Schedule G for the reasons and on the dates given. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Ms. Sauber, can I have the roll?
Kathy Crippen.
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Yes. Consider approving change. Oh, just kidding. Thank you. And I even have that circle too. Sorry. Schedule D or superintendent recommends the listing of personnel recommended for supplemental contracts or extra duty assignments. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Ms. Sauber, can I have the roll?
Kathy Crippen.
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Abstain.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Yes. Now we're going to consider approving the changes to the following Board of Education policy. Policy 2370.01, blended learning. Policy 5421, grading. Policy 5430, class rank. Policy 6220, budget preparation. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Can I have the roll call, please?
Kathy Crippen.
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Peters.
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Yes. Consider approving the following transportation items: the acceptance of transportation responsibilities for the 2026-2027 school year from the districts and for the students listed. And then please consider, we take them together, right?
We can take them together,
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Please consider a resolution to declare transportation impractical for certain identified schools/students and presented pursuant to the requirements of Ohio Revised Code 3327 and the procedures set forth by the Ohio Department of Education. The resolution follows careful evaluation for all the available options prior to the consideration of impracticality. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Conversation? Nope. Okay. Can I have the roll call, please?
Kathy Crippen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Yes. Consider approving a resolution honoring Megan Sparks with the Ohio School Board Association Recognition Award. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. No conversation. Good. Can I have the roll call, please?
Kathy Crippen,
Yeah.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Abstain, please. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Thank you. Final comments regarding past or old business from the Board of Education. I just want to say, I don't know if anyone saw, but we have a senior here at Centerville High School named Simon who just went to the USA Gymnastics National Tournament and has ranked 10th in the country. So congratulations, Simon. I thought that was super impressive in case you didn't see that. Anything else? There's no action items for tonight. So pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22G1, I hereby move the Board of adjourn to executive session to consider the employment or compensation of public employees of the school district. No other business will be conducted except to come out of executive session to adjourn. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Fauber, can I have the roll, please?
Kathy Crippen,
Yes.
Mrs. Dernbaugh,
Yes.
Mr. Peters,
Yes.
Megan Sparks.
Yes, please. All right. Thank you. I'll see everyone in executive session.